Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Delivery to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and those of the mother have went for a walk. Came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Dad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do so. We're going to be discussing AlexMurdaugh. I never thought that I would be saying those words because, back a few months ago, I thought we were done and over with this. Can you guys hear me? While I wait for chat to let me know that they can hear me, I will just share after he was sentenced phone call that he had with Buster, just while we wait for people to join our stream. This phone call took place the 16th of May, and this is after the verdict was read. So it's only 44 seconds long, but while we wait for more to join us, I will just share this.
Hey, buddy. Hey, I don't have a whole lot of time. I just boarded a ferry to get back to Hilton Head Island from Tupusky. Yeah, I know. I've been trying to call. I was supposed to call you while you were with Jim about this meeting. But anyway, how about text him and let him know I'm trying to call him? Okay. Did he talk to you about that, about the things that I told him? No, I can't really understand you either. All right. All right, I'm gonna leave word with Jim, and he'll be in touch with you. Love you. All right. Okay. I'm proud of you. Thanks.
All right. I also have a few clips I've put together to give us a little bit of a background of the case. And then it'll go into some of the updated clips from everything that has taken place with the breaking news this week. Again, there is alleged jury tampering that has taken place in AlexMurdaugh's trial. Now, whether or not you believe he's guilty, I believe he's guilty. However, I do believe that everybody has a right to a fair trial. And before he was sentenced and before the jury deliberated, he had the presumption of innocence, until they got to deliberate. Now, when they deliberate, we're under the impression, and of course, the defense team is under the impression that there wasn't any outside influence. It seems as though this news and everything that has taken place with Becky, there could be a significant argument made that will probably end up in going to an evidentiary hearing. And I don't know if the judge will be in the evidentiary hearing, because I'm also hearing experts claim that, because he is a witness to some of this, he might not even be the judge for the evidentiary hearing. Now, if he got a new trial, I believe that Judge Newman would be the judge again. I'm not 100% on that, but there are experts that are saying that Judge Newman wouldn't be the one residing over the evidentiary hearing, which would be the next step. If all this kind of has validity to it, which it does seem it does, given the fact that there is sworn statements in these affidavits, and when you do that, you risk perjury, a perjury charge, if you're not being forefront and honest with everything that you've written in that affidavit. It's just, there is weight to this. I have seen some talk and chatter amongst everything that's been taking place this last few days regarding this. And a lot of people are like, okay, so we're just going to let him go free. That's not what would happen. So if anything considered as jury temperament, it wouldn't go to he's a free man. So he would still be held, but he would obviously go and get a new trial while still being in custody. Now, again, this also has nothing to do with your personal feelings on the case as far as his guilt or innocence. This is just, it seems like a technicality that absolutely could be argued that there was influence on some of these jurors by the clerk of court. And her job is not to do that. Her job is to be impartial. Her job is to just kind of organize and be like the manager of the jurors, take care of the jurors, which brings us to the stuff about how she wasn't allowing them to take their cigarettes breaks and just other things, stating that they would have to stay in a hotel possibly. Let me just start playing some of these clips and then I will pause it as we speak along. She also wrote in her book, which some of the pages will be shown on screen. I'm not reading from the book, but you can see some of the pages that the defense team has taken out of her book to kind of show, you know, their side of this case. And apparently this book was the catalyst for some of the jurors to come forward and to kind of write their opinion on what they see being done by Becky. And I think that the book was in poor taste with how quickly it was done. And hello, Brooke Richards. It's good to see you. And everyone, thank you so much for being here. I think that it definitely could be argued that the speed the book came out was almost to lay the groundwork for their narrative. Some people think that the fact that she encouraged some of the jurors to go on the Today Show, excuse me, is also a indication that, you know, this was all about her fame and attention and money. She went on that trip with them. She wanted them to kind of sow the seeds of the narrative, because you'll hear them talk about how, you know, some of them didn't think that he was 100% guilty. And then, you know, she wrote in her book, they had an epiphany while at the Moselle crime scene walkthrough. And some people could see it as an epiphany. Now people are starting to question, was it an epiphany or was it influence? Because we're also hearing in some of these filings in this motion that Becky was having one-on-one conversations with the juror who kind of is like the speaker of the jurors, which isn't allowed at all. In fact, when all this was taking place during the trial, we had a live stream specifically about like what takes place at when you go to the crime scene and the jurors walk around. Actually, I think that was a Koberger live stream we did, because we talked about the house being demolished, but they referenced the Murdaugh case in the information that we were going through. And it's very specific that, you know, the jurors don't even talk to each other. So it just leaves you to wonder why Becky was, you know, conversing with one of the jurors. Yes, she's not another juror, but she's also in a position that she shouldn't be doing that. So there's just some things that have taken place that sound a little bit, you know, shady. Some people have called it corrupt. Other people have wondered how long she's been doing this type of practice. There's even people pointing out how ironic it is that, you know, of somebody in a position of power, being the court clerk, you know, she still has like an authoritative position to the jurors. And, you know, a lot of people were annoyed with AlexMurdaugh because they felt that he took advantage of his position of power. Now it's sort of ironic that it seems as though perhaps the court clerk did also. So let me just play this stuff. Again, it's just like a minute long of a recap of the case itself, and then it'll transition into some updated information. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, moderators. I see Florida Bass Fishing. I saw Criminality, Adrian, Alex Erickson, CDT, everyone being here. Melmac, thank you guys so much. Hi, LFT. I hope you're feeling well. And yeah, here we go, guys.
Sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts. Normally, when these paranoid thoughts would hit me, I could take a deep breath real quick and just think about it, reason my way through it, and just get past it really quickly. On June the 7th, I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't think I was capable of reason. And I lied about being down there. And I'm so sorry that I did. I'm sorry to my son Buster. I'm sorry to Grandma and Papa T. I'm sorry to both of our families. And most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Pawpaw. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them. Ever. Ever.
Did you continue lying after that night? Did you not?
But once I lied, I continued to lie. Yes, sir.
Why?
You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave. But once I told a lie, I told my family, I had to keep lying.
So I just want to ask chat, and for those watching on replay, do you believe that he was given a fair trial? Now, remember, when his defense team, in which they kind of state this in their press conference, I won't play the whole thing because I know you guys have seen a lot of it. I do have some clips of it I'll play next, but they state, if they had known the things that Becky was saying to the jurors behind the scenes, they might not have put him on the stand. Now, she's alleged to have been saying certain things like, don't be fooled by him when he goes up there. This is all just stuff that is out of her realm of where her authority lies and where her job lies. Now, I will state, I do think that he played a huge role in this and that he's guilty. But what's going on with this process? The defense team was also asked at the press conference, should she lose her job? Should she go to prison? Because she's facing state and federal crimes for all this. I think they were saying up to 10 years federal prison, perhaps. And the defense team stated no comment for both those questions. So, they're not out there to really throw her under the bus. They're simply out there doing their job. And remember, Harpootlian is a senator. So he has a unique position as his defense lawyer in that, he really is out there, as a person of the government, as somebody who has to uphold the Constitution. And, his votes rely on the fact, how well he's upholding the Constitution in a way. So I find that interesting, that aspect of it too, because he has even more reason to kind of put his foot down on, this broke his constitutional rights. And say what you will about his defense team, but this isn't just the defense team who is coming out saying that this stuff happened. Because I know I've seen a lot of people around on this breaking news state well, look where this source is coming from. They do this, they do that. They're shady. Jim Griffin's this. And, you can have your opinions, but it seems like from what I've seen so far, this does not look good. And there's a lot of experts and a lot of legal experts on this who are stating the same. This just doesn't look good on so many levels. And just, this being America, you are expected certain privileges and rights that as a citizen here, that you have to uphold those standards. Otherwise, what good is the Constitution and what good is everything that we've kind of worked for as a country in a way? And thank you, RJ, for becoming a member. I'm so happy you're here. And thank you, everyone, also for your comments. Elizabeth says, senators upholding Constitution would be nice. Yes, but that is rarely the case. And think about it this way, too. Not only is it can be seen as rarely the case, but is this just a ploy for him to get reelected, to kind of put his foot down as like, this is what I believe in, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just saying it kind of adds a different type of motivation behind all this. Although, like I said, it's not really the defense team that's grasping at straws, in my opinion. It seems like they have legitimate reasons to be saying what they're saying. And the sworn affidavits with, 3 different people pretty much saying like, yes, this is what was said to us. And now every single interview that they did with those jurors who signed those affidavits were done independently. So it was just, they were saying the same things and neither of them knew what the other person was saying. Apparently the defense team went to the jurors' homes and some of them wanted to talk, others shooed them away, but they definitely showed up at their houses to kind of, it's easier to lie over email or to say you don't want any involvement in something when you're emailed by the defense team rather than when they show up and they just kind of want to ask you questions. So I thought that tactic of it was interesting too, that they just showed up at some of these people's houses. Again, it does seem like the jurors are just speaking truth, which is why some of them were like, fine, we'll sign up for this. We'll do this. I'll write this affidavit for you guys, because what she did when she published her book, everything that I'm looking back and seeing, this was wrong, that was wrong. And that's pretty much what's going on. Now they will have less than 10 days, the prosecution, to respond to all this. What exactly are they going to claim? Some of this conduct is just blatant. So let's get into some of the details. And again, guys, I've been off for like a week now because of the move. So when you're away from YouTube, the algorithm just doesn't push your content out there because you've been away. So while I step back into YouTube with everybody, just hit the thumbs up, push the stream out there, and it really helps the channel out, and it's free to do.
Jurors must be free from outside influences and must decide the case solely on the evidence presented in the courtroom.
One of the things we heard was once the jury went out, even though there were 6 smokers and they were given smoke breaks during the entire trial, once the jury went out, they were told no more smoke breaks. No, you people that want nicotine, you're gonna have to get a verdict first.
Now I'm pausing it there because I don't smoke, but I know smokers and I know how, that's a big deal to kind of already or suddenly just be taken away from your smoke breaks that you need. I will read this comment that was in, I want to say it was in the Lawyer You Know's live chat the other day about this. Somebody wrote, I'm a former smoker, and if my next cigarette depended on a verdict, I'd have agreed to anything.
I mean, it's that kind of stuff. Now that indicates something, and the court would be the one to communicate that. Why? So a bunch of folks told us stuff that appeared to be inconsequential, but in the total context indicated to us that what we've put in this petition about the court is credible, and based on sworn testimony from 2 jurors, and we interviewed a third. My paralegal, Holly Miller, has given you an affidavit or filed an affidavit on what she told us. A lot of these folks just don't want to get involved, but they're going to be involved if we get a hearing, because each and every one of them is going to have to testify in an open court before you as to what happened and what didn't happen.
What we had filed today, supported by sworn testimony of jurors, is that the clerk of court had improper private communications with the jurors, and the subject matter of those communications was the credibility of the defense that the Murdaugh legal defense team put up, and it was the believability of the defendant's own testimony. Now, there's been a lot have said, talked about whether Alex should have taken the stand. I can assure you, when we considered what factors and what we should and should not do and considered whether he should take the stand, we never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language. And that is what the sworn testimony that we have filed in court today says. And if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there's no choice but the courts to grant a new trial.
Now, I already see comments discussing, evidence and how would he be found not innocent or not guilty, blah, 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 with the kennel video. I think that we just need to take one step at a time and acknowledge if or if not he had a fair trial. Whether or not the next jury would believe the BS, I don't know. We'd have to get to that point. And I'm already curious how many of you guys would watch another trial. Press 1 if you would watch another, press 2 if you wouldn't. But I'm just feeling like without even looking at his innocence or guilt, we have to have a fair process, and a county clerk or the court clerk cannot be talking to the jury and telling them, don't be fooled, he's about to take the stand. Now think about it with the aspect of her book too. How interesting would her book have been if he was found not guilty? I mean, not that interesting. It wouldn't be as good, it wouldn't sell perhaps as much as a story that it ended up to be. So what motive was it in for her to have these conversations with the jurors before he even takes the stand? Now, if you're the defense team and you know that the jurors are having these conversations with the clerk about this stuff, like they might not have decided to have him up on the stand. Yes, I think he's guilty, but I do believe that the process here should be impartial and without tamperment. And now it's the big question, was the process tainted here? And just like in the Scott Peterson process, they're on an uphill climb because of juror misconduct. That case is another rabbit hole in itself. And people, including myself, go back and forth on his guilt or innocence. But the truth of it is, one of the jurors in Scott's case lied about physical domestic abuse on her when she was pregnant. And she also was talking to jurors about writing a book when that trial was over, so it's just, there can't be like this like grimy dirtiness, like when people are at trial. Like he had the presumption of innocence until, so it's just, it can't be on shaky grounds, in my opinion. Not here, not in America. I don't wish that on other countries either, but we have a standard in our judicial system for a reason. And, people aren't going through this process, with assuming that there's somebody behind the scenes kind of like pushing things along with the jurors. Like that's just not right. And people brought up a good point. How many other times has she kind of swayed jurors in other cases? What if those other cases that she acted this way in, it was an innocent person going to prison? So you just you can't just say like, oh, I'm okay with it because he's guilty. Like that should be a huge concern if that's how people are feeling. But thank you for being here, everybody. I see Delana, I want to say hi to, and Pizza Chemist. Haven't seen you in a minute. It's good to see you. And Tony, Pointer Lover. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. Let's continue with this and we will chat some more. Specifically, during trial, the Colleton County Clerk of Court, Becky Hill, instructed jurors not to be misled by evidence presented in Mr. Murdaugh's defense. She told jurors not to be fooled by Mr. Murdaugh's testimony in his own defense. Ms. Hill had frequent private conversations with the jury foreperson, a court-appointed substitution for the foreperson. The jury. Now that is going into more detail, or just a sourced part of the affidavit where it's talking about how she had private conversations with kind of like the head juror, which, is out of character for her position. And that's also the same person that they're alleging she was having private conversations while they were at Moselle observing the crime scene. And again, you're not supposed to discuss the case with other jurors when you're on the jury team. And it goes without saying that the court clerk shouldn't be having conversations privately at crime scenes away from other jurors too. Like what was that conversation consisted of? Jury elected for itself at the request of Miss Hill. During the trial, Miss Hill asked jurors for their opinions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. Miss Hill invented a story about a Facebook post to remove a juror she believed might not vote guilty. Now, this whole Facebook thing, I needed it explained to me like numerous times. Let me just give you the dumbed down explanation. Somebody on the juror who was uncertain of his guilt or innocence, who might have sided with the defense team, had a husband named Tim something. And according to some Facebook group in that area, allegedly Becky had seen this juror's ex-husband posting in the group talking about the case and saying that, his ex-wife is a juror, like pretty much tied it to that one juror who was uncertain of his guilt and innocence. And, told the judge about it. And when the judge asked for proof or whatever, she said that she didn't screenshot it or have any of the proof and that the post was deleted. So there was no proof that ever even existed. Come to find out, she confronted that juror and said, blah, 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 your husband made a post pretty much. We know that you're discussing the case outside of the courtroom. You're not allowed to do that. And that juror was confused, like, no, I haven't talked to my ex in 10 years. And, I have a restraining order against him and all this stuff. Like that can't be. And nonetheless, she, got rid of that juror. That juror was dismissed. And, so the juror who was kind of on the fence, what do you know, gets pushed out over some Facebook drama that never was proven. Now, that woman's real ex-husband, Tim, has also pretty much come forward saying, I never posted on Facebook about the case. I never said that I talked to my ex-wife about the case. And gave the defense team a download of his Facebook history. So now the defense has a download of this Facebook history of the ex-husband. And with that download, they can determine, on a metadata level, did he post that? So it seems as though Becky made up that situation or took that situation in her hands and handled it wrongly. And I guess we're supposed to believe it's just a coincidence that they dismissed the one juror who was kind of borderline. And it's good to see you, Valerie, and Unravel. Miss Hill pressured jurors to reach a quick verdict, telling them outset of their deliberation that it shouldn't take them long. Now, there was also information in this motion speaking about how Becky put pressure on some of the jurors to do media interviews. Let me just get the exact stuff about that. So she traveled with them to New York, and even in her book, she talks about how she'd never been on a plane before and blah, blah, blah. Just like, really excited about the trip to go on the Today's Show with the jurors. She wasn't on it, but she was with them. And, it was a big deal for her. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to take a plane trip by her age, but at the same time, it just could be perceived as this woman was looking for fame and excitement, and she finally got it when she was involved in this case, in my opinion. It looks very much like an opportunistic situation for her. And it just seems as though some of the jurors didn't think that it sat well with them, how everything was kind of going down once the verdict was read and all that, and the book comes out, which, mind you, she is charging, she had it all on her page and all that on Facebook. You can get a copy and even an autographed paperback copy. So she's not only, pushing this book, but she's also offering her autograph for it, which I find very strange. If you're just a writer who just wants to share the process of, the court and all that, it just is weird to me that like she has it advertised as like, okay, you can order your pre-order book, blah, 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 it has the prices. And then it's like offering up an autographed one. Like it would be one thing if somebody was like, oh, would you mind autographing? But to offer it as like one of the packages you can buy, it's tacky to me. So mind you, this is after the verdict.
A lot has been made over the past few days about the speed with which you guys came back with that verdict. Take us inside the deliberation room. As I understand it, not everyone initially thought he was guilty. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so throughout the case, a lot of people had talked about how we didn't have a notepad in the jury room, but we weren't able to have it in the courtroom, but we did have them.
See, so I have to already pause it and rewind it a little bit. Now, they just admitted that at one point there was a juror, not all the jurors thought he was guilty. Now, this guy, I don't know if you guys remember, but his brother was one of the first responding officers there. Sorry, I had to cough. But they still allowed him on the jury, even though his brother was the one with kind of like the shaved down hair. Oh, his brother's a SLED agent. Okay, thank you, criminality. So people already were kind of uneasy about that aspect. Now, he just said, from my understanding, not everyone was convinced of his guilt. And they said, that's correct. And he's going to go into how, people thought it was weird that they weren't allowed notepads in the courtroom. But they actually were allowed them in the deliberation room. And some people had some questions and they were able to write down their questions and go through them quick. So it's like this juror is spinning that, the reason why they came up with their verdict so quickly. Now, remember, it was in 3 hours they came up with the verdict. And this guy, whose brother is a SLED agent involved in the case, I'm not saying that this is like corruption or anything. I'm just laying with the facts. This guy is trying to say that the reason why they came up with the verdict so quickly is because they were allowed notepads in the deliberation room. And once they laid out their questions, it was in an organized way that they were able to kind of work through it quickly. Now, that kind of goes against what Becky has written in her book. She claims at the crime scene at Moselle, they had an epiphany, and that with each other's eyes, they all knew that Alex was guilty without saying it. So her take in the book is, they realized he was guilty at Moselle. His take here in this interview is, they had questions, but they worked through them into the deliberation room. So that's how they came up with the verdict so quickly. So I just want to kind of share, like in her book, she's claiming they all knew at Moselle. Now he's saying that, in the deliberation room, the notepads were why they were able to kind of conclude all this so quickly.
Not everyone initially thought he was guilty. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so throughout the case, a lot of people had talked about how we didn't have a notepad in the jury room, but we weren't able to have it in the courtroom, but we did have them in the jury room. So a lot of people would write down questions as we, went back during break. So I think that kind of made the deliberation a little bit more efficient. Everybody knew the questions they had. We were able to get through them quickly.
Now, from what I remember, somewhere in this motion, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere in the motion, it talks about how she had a conversation with one of the jurors, Becky did, who was kind of uncertain about things. And she, flat out asked her, like, well, why are you uncertain of his guilt or innocence? And they said, well, they haven't found the murder weapon. And correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but didn't Becky say something along the lines of, well, they're never going to find that, or something to kind of like sway the conversation even more? Cheryl says, I think she was writing during the trial. And think about it. Her book coming out so quickly, everyone knew about this case and it was already on so many networks and all that. She definitely knew that she would be working this case. Now, I've always said that they should have done a change in venue. Many experts nowadays are claiming that, now maybe hindsight, everyone does know about this case, but hindsight, it seems like a change in venue might have been the route to go. Considering this little whispers going around with all these people in town. So Criminality said, yes, that's the egg lady. So she did have some sort of conversation with the juror that they dismissed about, why she had concerns of innocence. And that's not the place for Becky to be doing. Her job is, she's got a list of responsibilities. I'm not saying it's an easy job, but no way in that is she supposed to be influencing her opinion on the jurors. Now, for her post on Facebook talking about her book and promoting it, I'm reading the comments from yesterday. Somebody said she's going to need that book money to pay for an attorney. Now, I have heard today that she has lawyered up. And somebody wrote, great job. Alec will get a new trial because of you. Hope it was worth the money. Somebody else wrote, what if what is alleged today in the news is true as to what you've already done? I hope you are charged and placed in prison upon rightful conviction, something Murdaugh was entitled to. All profits from this book should be paid to the victim's fund. How shameful to profit off public service and the deaths of others. What a disgrace. Now, I have heard also she wrote an email to the ethics committee before the book was published. And she, asked them that, am I okay to write a book about the legal process of blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't know the email word for word, but I can tell you not once did she mention what case she was referring to. And this is a huge case, high profile, AlexMurdaugh. You could look at the email and think that she specifically worded it in ways that not to draw attention to the fact that this was going to be about AlexMurdaugh, in my opinion. This is just a quote from the judge during the time that they dismissed the lady, the egg lady, the juror who was on the fence. The judge says, after she was dismissed, Judge Newman said, oh boy, I'm not too pleased about the clerk interrogating a juror as opposed to coming to me and bringing it to me. And then the motion reads, he was right to be concerned. So, that shows that at the time of all that dismissal of that juror was taking place, it was a little bit uncomfortable for the judge to see the way that it was handled. Now, let me remind you, that whole dismissal was based off of that Facebook post that actually wasn't even her ex-husband. So very interesting. The one person who gets dismissed was somebody who was on the fence. Now, and there's like a made up Facebook post and stuff tied to it. It's just very rocky. Somebody wrote on her Facebook page, hope that book was worth it. Maybe you can give out copies while you are doing time. Karma just keeps coming around. Did Judge Newman know about your influence? Now, the defense team and many people have stated that they don't believe that the judge is involved in any of this type of stuff. But they think that maybe he was kept out of knowing certain aspects and all this, which is troubling in itself. Let's see. Oh, and she also criticized the juror who remember when Alex was quote unquote crying on the stand? Now, I never thought those were real tears. But remember when that took place and one of the jurors handed him a tissue? Apparently in the motion, it says something along the lines of Becky criticized jurors for doing that. And that's exactly what the defense team wants you to do. Now, does that sound like somebody who's in an impartial position in the court? That sounds like somebody who's like another member on the prosecution team. Now, again, I do think he's guilty, but I don't think that this type of behavior should be taking place in a courtroom. And hello, Sleuthy Goosey. It's good to see you. I want to play. Okay, yeah, it says right here. She told the jury, we cannot interact with Mr. Murdaugh because that is what the defense wants us to do. So that's what she had to say about the tissue that was handed to AlexMurdaugh. So let me just share my screen. I'm done with the clips I put together. And look at my notes at the same time. So yeah, again, these are sworn testimonies. I know people want to see both sides to this. I do too. Of course, I want an explanation. I do think that this could end in an evidentiary hearing and everything would be presented there and we can hear everybody's testimonies and their side to everything. If they all are sworn under oath as well as sworn in their testimonies, because these affidavits aren't just, let me sign my name. Like, you risk a perjury charge if you're lying in those. So I just want to ask chat, you know, it's stated in the book, the jurors had an epiphany while out at Moselle. Do you believe they had an epiphany, or do you think that they perhaps were given an influence out there? I don't know. So, you know, I'm not sure how much this book is making, but I'm certain that it's gotten more attention now. Give me 1 second. I want to play the co-author's interview. He did one on Court TV. Now, she had done interviews too, and she said things I thought were interesting. Like, they were asked, did you ever think that this, you know, you would be working on a case like this or something like that? And she says something along the lines of, never thought it would, or the magnitude would be this way, but, and then referred to it as like a dream. Like, and to me, that word was very interesting because it's like a dream come true. Like, you knew this was like your road to fame. Like, what's going on with that? Yeah, that's the thing too, criminality. And that to me, so he's the co-author. He said they put $30K towards a book to self-publish. Now, they probably split that. So $15K each. I'm not trying to say that's not a lot of money, but you know, the co-author in this interview tries to use that as an argument. Like, see, it wasn't about money for us. We put our own money into it. And to which I can kind of counter argue that some people who are trying to make money and invest in something will invest a huge chunk because they believe in the product and they believe in their work and they think that I'm going to get that money back and then some. So I didn't think that his argument there was that great, only because some people wouldn't even put in all that money unless they thought, I'm going to get this and more back, because they thought it was a good investment, business investment. They probably thought like, okay, that's a chunk of money for us now, but we're going to sell so much of this book that we'll make back that $30K. And then, you know, everything else is just going to be profit. It's going to be worth it for us to self-publish.
Get some balance here tonight. Let's get the other side. Joining us tonight, said there was a co-author here, co-author of Behind the Doors of Justice, the Murdaugh Murders, Neil Gordon is joining us tonight. Neil, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Vinny.
Okay, before we get into some real details here, your reaction to what happened today. I called it like an earthquake centered down there in the low country, shaking all of us who followed this case. What's your reaction to what you heard from the defense today?
I was shocked. I worked with Becky for 6 months as both a friend and a colleague on the book. And we've had many discussions when in writing the book about any kinds of conversations that she would have had with anybody associated as her.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sleuthy Goosey says, I agree with you. And the risk of not getting their investment goes up if the verdict goes the other way. Yeah. And I think it was before you joined, I said, how interesting and how much would the book sell if it was a not guilty verdict? Not so much. You know what I mean? So yeah, if they had already stated, yes, let's invest this or let's write this book, and I think we should invest this much and we'll make it back. Hopefully, you know, they go guilty. Like think about, because remember that egg woman was dismissed sort of near the end of trial. From what I remember, it was like, I don't know, it wasn't halfway through and then she got dismissed. It was like further along than that. So the one person who was kind of borderline on things gets booted based off of Facebook allegations that weren't even confirmed true. You know, was the book already in her mind at that moment? And she thought, I got to get rid of this eggs lady who's on the fence.
Poulian mentioned, I mean, she has many different tasks. She's got to work with the judge, the media, the public, dealing with the food, dealing with defense attorneys and so forth. And very little with the jury. I mean, there is a chief bailiff that keeps their eyes on the jury at all times, and there's very little contact.
So in preparing this book, were there any conversations that you had with Becky about conversations she had with jurors during the course of the trial, including the foreperson who the defense is saying there were private conversations, allegations that they're on the Moselle property and they walked off together? They may have had a conversation in the jury room bathroom.
Well, Vinny, all that I know and that we put in the book, you mentioned Moselle. There was.
Yeah, that's the other thing I didn't bring up yet. Some of these conversations with that head juror and this Becky woman were done in the ladies' room. Obviously, the bathroom is a private headquarters and private area where you're feeling like no one's going to see or listen in. So why exactly was this going on? Again, that's if this is true. Yeah, Crime Sleuthin says she had a motive to get rid of that juror, a lot of reason. Yeah. And it seems like she pulled things out just to, you know, get rid of her. And then when the judge was like, oh, do you know where that Facebook post is and stuff? Oh, well, it was deleted. It's just all very, very wishy-washy. And it's ironic, you know, with all the shady stuff that Alex did in his life, this stuff is going on in his trial. I don't know.
There was an order from the judge for there to be silence. There was no conversation to be had. So I asked her and said no conversation was had. We talked about a couple of different things. If you meet Becky, you know that she's a very spiritual person, and she mentioned that the jury was very prayerful. It was mentioned to her that they prayed often. Becky prayed often with her staff and all. And I asked her directly, I said, did you ever pray with the jury? And she said, oh, no. No legal entity is allowed to have prayer with the jury. So, you know, it was very clear to me that there was a line there.
Okay, now,
I don't get how it's clear to him that there was a line there just because she didn't pray with the jurors. You know what I mean? Like, why? I don't know. That's kind of reaching for me for him to state that, like, oh, there was a line there because she prayed with everyone else, but not the jurors.
It's unusual. I've been doing here at Court TV for a long time. I don't know if I've ever seen a book written by the clerk of the court after one of these big trials. I've seen them written by the attorneys on both sides, and sometimes they got in a little trouble for that. I've seen plenty of them written by jurors in states that permit it after a certain amount of time. What was the motivation that Becky had to get together with you to write this book? And was this the master plan before the trial started? Was it plotted that this was going to be the big retirement nest egg?
Oh, I don't know about that. I didn't actually meet Becky until 3 weeks after the trial.
Till after?
My wife, 3 weeks after the trial, my wife, like millions of people, were just glued to court TV.
So he's saying that he didn't even have contact with her till 3 weeks after the trial. Now, the way he's stating it is like he's trying to make it seem like it's like 3 years. Like, still 3 weeks for her to reach out to somebody to be a co-author. You know, it's kind of like, how much groundwork did she already lay? And then maybe she realized that she needed help with it, or somebody who she could, dupe. I saw that going around. Like, did this guy get duped? I think they're all seeing money signs, and maybe he was duped, but I think that blinded by like money pretty much. Also, I'd love to know of other cases where the court clerk wrote books about it. And I mean like high profile cases.
And they had trouble working. She decided to go with a colleague, Addie Strozier, to Walterboro to actually watch the trial. She had a chance meeting with Becky the day that the vans were leaving to go to Moselle. In fact, I remember what was said was that there was, Becky was actually making sure that people did not get pictures of the jury. That's how intent she was on that. And so Melissa mentioned to Becky, took a selfie and then reached her out, 3 weeks later and said, hey, do you mind if I use this in a coffee table book? And Becky said, this has been the trial of the century. And, I'm thinking about it. I just don't know how to go about it. And so they brought me in as a colleague. I mean, my background has been in journalism for 30 years.
It seems like she had the idea and then obviously duped this guy and got him to kind of do all the footwork.
I instantly liked her. And as you held up the book, Behind the Doors of Justice, you're right. No clerk of court has ever really written a book to just explain, just minute by minute, how intense a trial situation is and how reverent you have to be to the truth and to law.
Now, I've also seen legal experts pretty much say, but that's not Becky's job. Her job isn't to seek the truth and the justice. Her job is to be the manager and, make sure that everything's done efficiently and, the paperwork's done, your breaks are taken at the right time. What food do you want? All that works with the judge closely, so I don't know. This guy even himself seems to have like an inflated version of what Becky's role actually was.
And I got to tell you, you asked my reaction. I was pretty upset at what Harpootlian said was the motivation that Becky had. Last time I checked, Simon & Schuster did not send us a check for $200,000. The Gordons and the Hills put up $30,000 of our own money because we felt this was an interesting story to tell.
So his last name is Gordon's. So he says the Gordons and the Hills put up 30,000 of their money. So I'm assuming they split it. And obviously Becky's thinking, I'm going to make $15K and then some back, or I'm going to make $15K back because I'm speculating they split it. So she's just thinking, I'm going to make more than that off this book. So let me just go with this guy and split it with him.
So right away, Vinny, for that to be motivation for her to get a book deal is completely false right there.
So what you just explained to me is that you're in the negative on this.
We self-published.
You self-published.
We self-published.
So Vinny says you're in the negative on this, and he's saying we self-published. So he doesn't say yes. but he's, you know, just because people who self-publish obviously want their money back and then some. So again, I just don't feel like this guy's argument really is that strong.
That means you didn't get the big advance, none of that.
No.
Okay.
We advanced a check for $30,000. You know, you got attorney fees, you got to get set up on Amazon, you got to print so many copies, liability insurance, editors, you name it. But we felt it was a story that should be told. I mean, in my lifetime, I'm 59 years old. I don't know that there will ever be another trial like this. And it was my honor and pleasure to work with somebody with such integrity.
So that's the thing, though, is when she emailed the ethics community, she made it seem like it was like LibGuides and law and stuff like that, like resources for ethics and, you know, stuff like that. In the email, she never once said to them, I'm writing a book about the AlexMurdaugh trial and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be this way. Like, she probably made it sound like it was going to be like what the other clerks write about. She never pretty much gave up exactly what her book was going to be about when she emailed the ethics committee. So that's a little bit rocky too. So what other clerks are doing this in the magnitude that Becky has, as far as it being a high profile case and also a story about her experience and the jurors, what they were thinking when they were at Moselle. You know, she's speaking for the jurors when she says, we looked at each other and without saying anything, our eyes said he was guilty. I'm not reading it quote by quote, but that's something along the lines of what she wrote in the book. So I'm just curious, you know, why didn't she kind of elaborate more when she emailed the ethics committee about what exactly she was writing, what case it was about, and what it would entail exactly. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of things that she did that seems like she was trying to kind of get away with doing it on her terms, without risking the ethics community saying, we really don't want that book, blah, 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 like this, and how you've presented it to us yet. So, but she kind of left out the details and the specifics of what her book would entail.
Integrity and character as someone like Becky Hill. Did you interact with her? I know that you were there.
I was there. I did not. Some of our staff had the opportunity to do that. And you said another trial like this in our lifetime. Well, we're hoping there's not going to be another one like this, because that's what the defense wants, is an exact repeat of the trial. Obviously, they want a different ending to the whole thing. Have you spoken to Becky today after all of this has become public?
Very briefly, as you might imagine, she's had calls off the hook from media outlets. And as much as she'd like to make a statement, these allegations are so deep that she has hired counsel and they're going over them. But I am told they are going to put out a statement in the near future. And one thing I know about Becky Hill, she will answer each and every one of these allegations truthfully. She's one of the most genuine people I know, and it made me sick seeing this played out on national TV, and I just felt like I needed to speak out.
You know, and again, I've prefaced everything today saying, if this is true, because
thank you,
because that's a big part of it, right? And the fact, I mean, she's been doing this for years, right? So, I mean, she understands the rules and the role and everything else. So that's why I was so shocked by these allegations. Now, there were some strange things that happened during the course of this trial, including this whole Facebook controversy with juror, I think it was 758, who ended up getting kicked off. Was there any of that sort of drama? Because I have not read the book yet. I'll be honest with you. Okay, 100% honest. I have not read this book yet. Now everyone has to read it, right?
Vicky,
to figure out what the defense
Vinny,
is talking about.
I'm gonna send you an autographed copy.
Oh, thank you.
I love how like nice Vinny is. Oh, thank you. He doesn't want an autographed copy, I don't think.
Thank you. But is there anything in here about the juror who got bounced from the trial because of whatever was going on with the Facebook posts, with the ex-husband, etc.
Yes, there is, and what it all led to, and this I think is really the most important part of it in our book, is it led to Judge Newman, very unusual, calling the jury back in chambers and interviewing her, calling the juror rather, and interviewing her about the situation. And what he said, and he addressed this to the public and to the gallery, he said he felt that she was discussing the merits of the case, whatever way you wanted to go with it, with the outside public. And so the judge did decide to disqualify her and send her home.
And does Becky, was she discussing with Becky? Is that who she was speaking with?
Oh, no. Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Apparently, and again, I'm not crystal clear on this, but
this is not sworn testimony tonight, Neil. You're not under oath, so just your best recollection.
Thank you.
Will work tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, Vinny, there were apparently some Facebook posts that were out there, allegedly by somebody who knew her, and talked about her talking about the case in the community. That was enough for the judge to call the person in. And then after interviewing that juror, he decided that she should not be on the jury anymore. So the end result is the judge made the decision, and we didn't.
Now remember, the judge makes a decision to dismiss her, but the information and the facts that were brought to the judge about it were from Becky and also not factual, because come to find out, that juror's husband let the defense team and everything go on before this motion became public. You know, they scanned his Facebook and it proves that he wasn't the one that made that post. So she gets dismissed based on information from Becky that wasn't true.
Really cover much of, because Becky really didn't have any involvement in it that we discussed.
So as we sit here tonight and you think about doing this project with Becky.
Now, when he talks about his little project with Becky, you know, I see chat is agreeing too. You know, he goes really hard. She's got these ethics and blah, blah, blah. She would never do this. It's like, we all know that you guys barely know each other. You know, she never even been on a plane. So she's definitely not visiting this guy. Like, they're not lifelong friends pretty much, because obviously his accent's different than hers. They're, you know, he was somebody that she used, in my opinion.
You guys funded it yourselves. Are there any regrets? Anything like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this, or, oh, we put stuff in here that could be problematic and could perhaps compromise the trial or compromise Becky?
Well, that's a fair question, Vinny. And obviously when we sat down, we decided that we wanted to share as much as we could with, and I should tell you, this was run through a media attorney. This was run through the Ethics Commission in the state of South Carolina about even a clerk of court being allowed to write a book, an elected official. And they said, as long as, you know, sealed documents aren't shared and as long as confidential information is not shared, it's okay. And so we went on that premise before we even started. And we carefully vetted this through media attorneys and editors, and we feel very good about it because it's not so much about the trial. You were there, you saw, and you can see the gallery, small town courthouse. It's like Mayberry, town square. The media is all out in front. People have an opportunity to come in and see this almost an opportunity of a lifetime. People came from New York and other parts of the country just to see this. And it was wonderful to be able to share how when people work together for the common good to do the right thing, this can come off as, I think, a well thought of trial and how it was run. And that was really her job, was to run the courtroom. That's she's like the operations manager.
She's like the operations manager or like a wedding manager, orchestrator, whatever they're called. You know, that's her job in the courtroom. Now, that also emphasizes the fact that she shouldn't be going off into bathroom stalls and off at the crime scene with a juror having private conversations. She shouldn't be, you know, stirring up false information about a juror so that they get dismissed. Come to find out that juror had doubts about the defendant's guilt or innocence. It's just very strange.
Of the courtroom. And from what I could tell, it seemed to me she did a very good job, and I'm proud to call her a friend, and I'm proud to co-author the book with her, and I'd write another one with her.
Well, I've got the title for the next one, Behind the Doors of Justice, and you follow how all of this sort of works its way through the whole system. Unbelievable. Neil Gordon, appreciate you coming on tonight. I always want both sides of every story, especially when one side is really loud with theirs. So I hope you'll come back as things develop.
I'd be honored to. And Vinny, thank you for being balanced on this and an opportunity to come on and share. And I hope you have a great rest of the program.
All right. Thanks so much. Neil Gordon joining us tonight. All right.
I haven't watched the rest of this. I'll watch it with you guys, but pretty much, I believe Becky has lawyered up. And remember, AlexMurdaugh is still claiming he is innocent. You know, and that's besides the point of Becky's issues, but just wanted to lay that out there also in case he does get a new trial. That has been his stance still since he was sentenced a few months ago. Now, if he gets a new trial, it's also proven that this opens up the door for new evidence, and new discovery. Now, we had discussed earlier, this doesn't disprove the Snapchat video where we hear his voice, you know, and it doesn't. It looks very bad how things are right now. Now, what would happen though if they get a new trial and new evidence and new discovery is out there? I don't know. You know, are we gonna watch it if there is another trial? I think I would. If a juror says any of what Becky said and did during all of this affected the outcome, I believe he deserves a new trial. It seems like the defense is still claiming that the motive for all this, for Becky to have these little whispers with the jurors, is money motivated. And I kind of can see their take on it. I do want to see the prosecution side of all this. And if this goes to an evidentiary hearing, you know, we're going to be following it, and we're going to want to know both sides. Says lawyers probably felt if they, so that was referring to them going in person to talk to these jurors. They probably felt they would have better results if they talked to them in person. Now they had gotten 3 affidavits, sworn affidavits signed, all stating similar statements, and it was all done independently. So let me just read more of my notes. Oh, and did you guys also see that there's going to be a Lifetime movie on all this? Already. Okay, epiphany. Now, the epiphany that she writes in her book, I'm curious, you know, is that just her kind of spinning the narrative in the order of things? Was the Moselle trip, refresh my memory, Chad, if you know, was that before or after the eggs juror got dismissed? I'm curious. I feel like it was before she got dismissed. So yeah, we talked about how you're not supposed to be speaking to anyone when you're at the crime scene, especially like jurors not speaking to other jurors when you're when you're looking through the crime scene in person. She was seen talking to one of the jurors in private by themselves. Do you believe, guys, that she inserted herself in the case? She was also quoted in that motion as to pretty much asking somebody's stance, one of the jurors. Do you think he's guilty or innocent? Like, that's not her place to do. Yep, Becky lawyered up and it's now in the hands of the court. We all want to know, has the process been tainted? If so, that's an issue.
All right, don't go anywhere. Up next. Will AlexMurdaugh get a second chance to stand trial? A second chance.
Games? You want to?
I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime.
All right, he says he didn't do it, says he wants a new trial. Now he may have a reason to get a new trial, depending on how this whole thing goes. Explosive allegations from his team today, saying that the clerk of the court, Becky Hill, who wrote this book, we just spoke to her co-author, was talking to the juror and influencing the jury during the course of the case. Take a look. This is an affidavit from juror 630. Toward the end of the trial, Rebecca Hill told the jury not to be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys, which I understood to mean that Mr. Murdaugh would lie when he testified.
So this is part of the affidavit of one of the jurors. How would you guys take that if you were on the jury? If the court clerk says before the defendant takes the stand, they said to you, don't be fooled. Wouldn't that pretty much tell you that the person who's about to take the stand right in front of you is probably going to lie to you the whole time? Now, if they have that in their heads, how are they able to kind of look at it objectively like a juror should? You know what I mean? Even though I believe myself, as we watched it live, his tears weren't genuine. There was just a lot of things that weren't really feeling like, he was really grieving, in my opinion. So I'm just curious, how would you guys take it if that was said to you and you were on the jury? Not to be fooled. I would take it as he's about to lie to you.
She also instructed us to, quote, watch him closely immediately before he testified, including to look at his actions and look at his movements, which I understood to mean that he was guilty. It's as if we had Janine Driver instructing the jury on body language. What is this? Now, she's denying it. Her co-author also told us that none of this happened. What does this mean? So it's a big if, but if could be a big problem. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight in Seattle, Washington, trial attorney, author of Justice in the Age of Judgment, fellow at the American College Trial Lawyers, Ann Bremner. Also with us tonight in West Palm Beach, Florida, former police lieutenant, great trial attorney, Rick King. And in Columbia, South Carolina, criminal defense attorney, Lori Murray, Lawyer Lori on TikTok. Millions and millions and millions of views. You got to check it out. All right. Lori Murray, let me start with you first, though. I just spoke with Neil Gordon, the co-author. Seems like they vetted all of this to get ready for the book. There was nothing about these conversations. When they went to the Moselle property, when they allegedly had these conversations, there was all silence. What are your thoughts tonight about whether or not these allegations made by the defense could be true? 0 to 10, 10 being it's the truth, 0 being come on.
9.5. I believe them. They're sworn affidavits. I'm sorry, you're talking about you putting two people against each other. You're asking her whether she did her due diligence, but are they going to say to her, hey, you influenced us? It's not their job. When they're asked about what happened, what the interaction was with Becky, then they told defense attorneys what that interaction was. They don't, Becky's not going to go, did you feel like I was influencing you? Because I kind of was. At this point, it's like Becky with the bad book.
Ann Bremner, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a person from the court system, here's the court clerk, allegedly, again, it's allegedly.
Right.
If criminal defendants get the presumption of innocence, clerks of the court clearly get them when they're not even charged with anything, okay? Okay, so.
Right on.
Right, so, but I've never seen an instance like this. I mean, does this stuff happen and I just don't know about it? I'm naive?
No, I mean, this is stunning. But if a juror swears that this happened, I mean, there could be a new trial, like you said. I mean, if they said that happened, the judge is presumed prejudicial if there's extrinsic evidence like this. Something's injected in the jury room, is presumed to be prejudicial, and then the judge has to conduct a hearing to decide whether or not that's harmless. And last I looked at that was harmless beyond a reasonable doubt. I've had 2 cases like this. One of the cases, not like this, it wasn't the clerk, but extrinsic evidence and not jury tampering, but close, where I benefited, got a new trial, and once where I, as a prosecutor, had to do a whole do-over in a serial rapist case. So it happens, especially with social media. But I can't believe a clerk would do that. I just can't.
Now, I don't know if you guys know the attorney Melanie Little, but she's been on a guest for Duty Run a lot and obviously has a legal perspective. 30 years, she says she's never seen anything like this either. And I know that other experts out there are just stunned if this is all true. Again, that one woman brought up a good point. These are sworn statements, you know, and what does the jurors have to gain by all this, you know, by lying? Why would they lie? They said that she'd said those things. Now remember, Becky's influence in the courtroom is supposed to be impartial. So another thing that was kind of brought to my attention through Web Sleuths digging into all this was a few days after the verdict was read. So he's been confirmed guilty by the court of law. Creighton Waters, who everyone knows is the lead prosecutor, that one guy we've seen on the screen, posted a video on Twitter, now known as X. I hate how we have to say that every single time. Like every news person is like, whenever anyone's referring to Twitter, they're like, but now known as X. Anyways, he posted a video of himself playing the guitar. Miss Hill replied, 3 heart emojis in the comment, your biggest fan. So again, it could be seen as nothing, but if you're looking at everything that Becky kind of is alleged to have done, it almost seems like she is another person in the prosecution's team in all this. And that's not her position.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't.
So Rick King, I believe an affidavit might be enough to get a hearing. But I want someone in the courtroom facing cross-examination, direct examination, under oath, in view of the public, saying this stuff for me to believe that is. But if it's true, Rick, I think I'm with any lawyer, right? If this is true, there's no way he should not get a new trial, because we can't have people telling, I don't care who they are, it doesn't matter who they are, talking about the case with a jury.
Right, I totally agree with you. And here's the thing. So in Florida, the clerk doesn't have that kind of jury contact. It's the deputy, it's the bailiff in the courtroom who speaks to the jury and takes them out, brings them to lunch, brings them back.
Well, that was the case here too, though. But what Neil Gordon just told me in the interview was there was a bailiff who was in charge of the jury, but I guess the court clerk also had a say in coordinating some of this stuff. I don't know. It's the first trial I'd covered in the Low Country where I went there and saw it in action.
So to me, that in and of itself is somewhat like skeptical, and it gives the kind of just the it looks the impropriety. It just looks improper.
Yeah, it looks improper. It's just a lot of, you know, when you raise your one eyebrow, like you just like, or look at something sideways. Everything that I've been seeing on coverage for this so far this week, it's just a lot of things that I'm raising my eyebrow to and like wondering like what's the motive behind that, or why did she do that, you know? And again, like Vinny said, once they have, if it gets there, and I think there's a lot of people who think it will, there's going to be an evidentiary hearing. Every single one of the jurors will be up on the stand under sworn testimony. maybe even Judge Newman might be one of the witnesses. I don't know. But, then we can lay out explanations, and I believe they can be cross-examined. So they'll be able to explain their story to both sides, and hopefully we'll get to follow the process. I think this is going to lead to a new trial. I really do.
But here's what I would say also, and this is where you can color me skeptical. What are the chances of the journalist's wife getting a selfie with her, and then months later they're having?
Yes, Brooks, you asked earlier in the live, how did she get connected with that co-author? And then and I think the co-author even says like, well, my wife was following the case so closely, blah, blah, blah. So it's just very interesting, like how they connected, like her and that co-author. It's kind of like coincidental. Now he's just going for so hard for how much integrity she has, XYZ.
Happens to be, it just happened to have her phone number to call her, and this book thing gets started. Color me skeptical, but I just
wait a minute. Let's talk about the book deal here. If this is the big prize, right? This is why we're doing all of this. This is why we are potentially committing crimes and tampering with the jury, is to produce this. There was no advance, Lori Murray. There was no advance. It cost the authors $30,000 to get this out to the public. They're in the negative right now, Lori Murray. Unless all your TikTok followers are going to buy a copy, they're not going to make money from this.
You have a copy.
I have told all of them not to buy that. I have told them all, do not buy this book because
Well, that's the problem too, is like they might not make their money back that they invested in it, but that doesn't mean that money wasn't a motivator. You know what I mean? You might have just came out with a book that was just not that great, but you had this dream and you thought that it was going to go somewhere. So I still think that the argument is valid that, all of this was done for money for her book.
What are you doing that for? Let them at least get their money back. They spent $30,000 to make this.
I read that thing and I want my money back. It was the biggest piece of self-aggrandizing collection of papers that I have ever seen. Becky was the center of the case. Becky got to read the verdict. Becky did this. Becky did that. Becky. And, I want to say that in South Carolina, to your point, sir, from Florida, the clerk of court is over our bailiffs. Our bailiffs are the ones that are supposed to have the contact with the jury, not the clerk of court. So if she had one bit of contact with them, it's improper. The bailiffs have the contact with the jury, not the clerk of court.
Okay. And I don't know what the truth is here. I don't know. I need to see testimony. I heard all about affidavits. Ann Bremner, in your career, are affidavits always accurate?
No. In fact, in these juror matters, they're not accurate. In fact, one of my cases, they were totally inaccurate. And it went up on appeal and then all over the place. But you're like, how did you say that? If you got him to say that, and they go, I didn't mean that. When they testify, well, I didn't mean to say that. That lawyer asked me to do, X, Y, and Z. So they're just trying to be helpful. No, they're not always accurate.
Okay, so we will see. And like I said, I agree with everyone. I think that if this is true, but we got to get to that part of it. And this weekend, I'm glad I bought it because I needed it tonight. I just bought a big thing of Himalayan pink salt, sea salt, or whatever it is from the Himalayas. So I bought it this weekend. I got it. I needed it, but this could be a real problem. All right, they're with us the whole hour, folks. Our think tank up next.
Sony Bravia X.
All right, guys, let me just go through my notes real quick. I think that's pretty much all I had to say. I think that, like I said, they have less than 10 days. The prosecution has to respond to this. And then the next step after that will likely be an evidentiary hearing. But I don't know. What are you guys thinking? I feel like we're going to get a new trial. I really do. Unfortunately, I'm not saying I want one. I don't want to go through all that again. But so let me just talk about what's coming up for the channel. Again, I've been out of this loop for like a week with my moving process. I have to set up the office still, so I don't have my camera on, but it'll all be together soon. And we can come back and talk about this case again, which I never thought that we would be discussing again. I'm also looking for updates on Rachel Morin. I can't find anything new. It's very discouraging, and I'm very upset that, you know, we haven't made some sort of, you know, break in that case. So we haven't forgot about Rachel. We're waiting for something significant. I hope we get that soon. As far as Koberger, we obviously are still waiting on that trial, and who knows how long that'll be. But, oh, thank you so much, Pizza Chemist. Just seeing that you gifted memberships. Thanks, Delana, for letting me know. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know it is crazy how one lady might get him a new trial. Shame on her. And she's in an elected position. People voted her in. And yes, welcome to all my members. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys stick around while we cover other cases. Koberger, we're going to go through some more stuff that they're talking about in reference to the IGG testimonies that were made a few weeks ago. And I want to discuss how FBI showed up at Vargas's house. That's a whole situation. So I'm still taking my notes on everything going on in that case, and as well as Rex Heuermann, also known as the Gilgo Beach killer. And yeah, I think that CDT says Murdaugh brings out my clone. Yeah, I can't believe that. Again, guys, if you don't see CDT with a blue wrench in chat, it's not her, just to put that out there. I just can't even believe it, especially with your new picture that you got up. Like, they changed the picture. I don't get it. So let me just think. Oh, yeah. So we want to go back through. You guys are going to kill me, some of you, unless you're on board with it, which I know a lot of you are. That's the thing that I wanted to say is over 3,000 of my subscribers have subscribed to me just based off of my Chris Watts documentary. Now, I know a lot of my channel growth came from that case in general. So I know that you guys are interested in the case. Again, it was closed from the day that we started covering it. So covering a closed case, some people still want to do it. Some people still want to comb through it. So in addition to following these active cases, I'm going to add in a Watts live stream weekly as well. And we'll just start it over and comb through it, because perspectives have changed over the years for me in the case. Again, I'm sure that Chris Watts is guilty and is where he belongs, but there's a lot of mystery regarding that case. But either way, guys, I'm going to be coming around and posting when I'll be live as soon as I can, and just trying to get back in the swing of things. I do kind of want to do morning live streams too, but we'll see how that goes with the little one. She's growing so much, and like she wants out of her crib ASAP. So the morning lives just aren't as convenient as they used to be. But I know that you guys like a solid time that you can find me and all that. So I'm trying to find that. I'm trying to find some consistency, but I will be around and I will be here as much as I can. Yeah, Pointer Lover says, I still think NK is involved. I do too. I'm not sure what shape or form, but I have new theories and new things that I'm kind of looking through all the time because of my Facebook group regarding that case. In fact, I've been trying to share a lot of Shanann's Facebook videos in my Facebook group. So I don't have her videos on my channel, but I am combing through her videos to kind of figure things out still. And if you haven't seen her videos, you can join my Facebook group and I'll link it in chat and you can see her videos in that. And I don't know, I'm feeling like I'm learning new things in my theories for that case still to this day. So either way, we will talk very soon. And I just appreciate you guys all being here. And yes, absolutely, CDT. I would love that. You can come up and talk through the case. It'll be fun. And I will see you soon, Florida Bass Fishing. Yeah, Watts, back to our roots. And I know some people are just like, have had it with that case, and I totally get it. But I just wanted to state that a lot of people have subscribed to me because of that case. So it does seem like there is people who want me to go through it. You know, there's people who comment asking for me to go through stuff again. So either way, I'll be going through any case that I can, even in my other Facebook group, which will be linked. And that has every case out there, not just Watts. So we discuss crime in those formats also. But thanks for being here, everybody. And thank you all those who became new members. And I'll see you guys soon.